X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to Battle of the Atom. This is the weekly X-Men podcast where we rank every X-Men story from A to Z.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Zach. And you know what we don't have this week, Adam?
What don't we have this week?
We don't have like an all-star guest to entertain all the listeners. But do you know what we do have?
What do we have?
We have each other.
I was going to say, we can be each other's all-star guest, you know?
Yeah, we have the bond of 50-ish episodes of this podcast already in our belts. So we can make this happen.
Yeah, and we have an exciting episode today because we're doing an all Wolverine episode today.
Yeah.
Which have we done that yet?
I mean, I feel like about Patch.
Oh, that's true. These aren't Wolverine stories. They're Patch stories on top of being all Wolverine stories.
We got Patch. We got Lucky Jim. We got old Hot Claws himself, and that is all we're talking about this episode.
Yeah, it's the best disguise in all of comics.
And do you know why we are talking about, good old Jimmy Howlett this day?
I assume that we're getting started here by a request. So what is the request?
We are getting, started here because of a request. And that request comes to us from Thomas Cummins on Patreon. Now, here's the thing about Tom. Tom has been a longtime supporter of the Xavier Files media empire, even in the days before there was an actual Xavier Files media empire. So, he's a good dude. He also, and I'm going to have to check with him before I say his name in association with this, but I think it's fine. He also runs the fabulous Twitter account No Context X-Men, which posts panels of X-Men without context, like it says, and it's very funny.
Yeah, and I think the inspiration for this particular storyline may have come from one of those out of context panels, right?
Yes, that it's a panel from Wolverine Volume 2, number 17, where Wolverine, shirtless on a roof, screams out cocaine. Like he's freaking Dr. Roxo. Dude is loving cocaine.
And you know what's crazy about that is that seems on its own just like it's the most batty bonkers thing ever. It's not. Like when we finally get into what, and we don't have to spoil this right this second, but when we get into what that cocaine is, that is one of the most insane bonkers things I may have ever read in a comic. So
no, we're going to spoil this for a second. That cocaine is a deviant version of John Sublime. Like, the Eternals, the worst Inhumans.
Yup.
This is a living spore of that. It's a let's get the basics out of the way because this story is buck wild. This is Wolverine Volume 2, 17 through 23. We're just going to call it the Wolverine Acts of Vengeance because that's what it is. Acts of Vengeance just kind of happens in the middle of this, I guess.
Yeah, it only gets a shout out on a couple of the covers. It's really strange.
It was written by Archie Goodwin with art by John Byrne and Klaus Jensen, Glennis Oliver colors. Before we jump into Wolverine, I feel this was not planned. Have you heard about my recent interactions with Mr. John Byrne?
Well, you actually had interactions with him. From what I understand, he recently decided in his infinite wisdom that he was going to revisit some Uncanny X-Men. He's been doing some pencils on his very, very troubling message board. Did you actually interact with him in some regard?
No, we have been interacting around each other is the bigger thing. I posted an article about it because John Byrne regardless of your feelings about him as a human, and
Mm.
frankly, you should probably not have great feelings about him as a human, John Byrne is responsible for some of the biggest moments in X-Men. The number one story on our list right now is a John Byrne co-written and penciled X-Men story, Days of Future
Mhm.
Past. Like, dude's got bona fides, so him drawing X-Men, worth pointing out. Here's the thing, though. I didn't credit the exact source exactly the way John Byrne wanted it to. So he sighed
Oh.
at me and then got his message board to come over and start asking me questions in my comments section.
Oh, Jesus.
It was weird.
Yeah.
It's weird. Here's
Yeah,
the weird thing.
he's got.
The message board doesn't have an account active that's like newer than 2006,
Mhm.
which means there's a very tight-knit community of people who are worshiping John Byrne, which is
Yeah.
just it's an odd thing.
Well, and it's a very troubling set of topics over there. You know, I mean, if you go through it post 9/11, there's some really just xenophobic, racist, transphobic stuff on that site that, you know, I there's no denying that John Byrne is an incredibly talented person, but you know he's leaving a very troubled personal legacy along with that artwork, similar to some of the things that we've heard Frank Miller say in interviews that just doesn't make you feel good about following anything new coming out from him.
Speaking of Frank Miller, though, Klaus Jensen does the inks on this, and the inks are very good. And I don't know that Klaus Jensen is a bad person, so I'm going to assume that he's great.
I would hope so, because I'm a huge fan of Jansen's work, especially with Miller. And it's interesting because I just did a quick search about this because I was very curious to see how this happened. When you look at cover of issue number 17, John Byrne has signed the cover. It's a great cover of Wolverine jumping out in his brown costume. And if you look to the left of the barcode box down in the bottom left, it has John Byrne's signature, but it also says never say never again. The idea that he maybe at one point said I would never draw the X-Men again, and here he is. And I found a little excerpt, I don't know if it's from an interview or what, where he said he basically did this as a favor for editorial, but he only had time to do the breakdowns. So we have Klaus Janson doing the finishing work here, which gives it a really kind of cool Miller thin line look. It's really neat. But it was funny because even in this excerpt, John Byrne was complaining about how Klaus Janson inked his work and how he finished it. He was like, I didn't appreciate how he did that. And it's like, okay. I guess
he's only
everything
quit
is
the
a
X-Men
problem
and said, I will never do this again, like 3 times. 1981, 1991,
exactly,
and 2000 and like 1.
Yeah, so that there may be some baggage attached to this, but I thought on the whole this is an absolutely batty Wolverine story.
It's
it's really strange.
Late 80s, early 90s as all get out. It has Madripoor. It has Roughhouse. It has Tiger Shark. It has a character whose name I am forgetting, but Bandera, who is a what country is it? A Cuban freedom fighter.
Well,
who takes over a small South American country and then becomes the president at the end of the story.
Yeah. She's Bandera. She has the power of empathy and also some energy blast powers. I think she's great. It's kind of like an odd John Byrne-esque creation, but I guess Archie Goodwin had this character cooking in his head. But I like her. I think she adds a little bit of fun to this story.
Yeah, she's one of the better parts of this. This whole story, it's just
there's a bunch of strange side characters in this. There is, there's a cybernetic Nazi named Geist.
I forgot
about the
cyber Nazi. He's a bad dude.
Yep. He's kind of He's kind of the main villain. There's like a kind of a Castro fill-in, whose wife happens to be a nun who only wears all white and has healing powers, named Sister Salvation, which
Yeah, that
is
was
weird.
uncomfortable. Like I don't think there was anything in particular problematic about it, but there was a lot of stuff that felt icky.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's weird. Like Sister Salvation is a nun who gives back massages and like heals people. It's really weird. Um, Daredevil makes a cameo in this story in the first issue. I
This
mean,
is true.
this thing is all over the place. But maybe we should just get like a quick synopsis of the story, because you're probably wondering, if you've never read this, how this all ties together.
Wolverine tracks cocaine and ends
Yeah.
up fighting a giant spore monster made out of this cocaine.
Yes, because there is a is it South or Central America? I don't think they ever really specify. But there is this president who wants his own Captain America, and he's decided that the way he's going to do it is employ a cyber Nazi to help him, use this insane cocaine, which happens to be spore, to create Roughhouse into his own Captain America. And things don't go that well.
Yeah, that's got a lot of problems associated with it. One,
Yeah.
why are you grabbing Roughhouse, this random Madripoor bad guy, and saying you will be my Captain America? Two, why the cocaine? And then why distribute and have the cocaine elsewhere if you have magic cocaine? I've got a lot of questions with this drug lord's plan, and none of them are
Yeah, it does.
good questions.
No, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, and in the background of all of this is the cyber Nazi Geist, who is just the strangest of characters. He's presented as this white guy who's kind of been in the background of multiple um, fascist rules, and um, I guess has like a straight razor built into his hand. So
Yeah, what was up
he's
with
got
that?
this weird thing with shaving. He likes to shave people. Um, yeah, this is a weird story, guys, if you haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah, it's got a lot going on with it. Uh, it's very indicative of why I haven't read all of Wolverine,
Hmm.
because there's a lot of weird stuff in here. A lot of stuff I'm not particularly interested in, but like it's not good. It's also not bad. It's very in the middle for me.
Yeah, I certainly didn't think it was bad. I think the art is really interesting to see these two artists
Mhm.
combine their work into something really just fascinating to look at, to see those two styles clash. Because, I don't know, these aren't the two artists that you would necessarily think to pair together. And I think they do a really interesting job. The storyline is absolutely batty. It goes on for 7 issues. So,
Yeah, this
this
is
is more
too
than
long.
half a
This
year's
is
worth of
too
content.
long. That's the one
Yeah.
thing that I was noticing. Like, okay, let's get to it. Like I know they shoehorn acts of vengeance in there. And by the way, it's never not funny when they say acts of vengeance during acts of vengeance.
Yep, and it happens twice in the 7 issues. You get two name drops of Acts of Vengeance.
There's an
I think
acts of
Kingpin
vengeance
says it.
going on. Like
Yeah,
I
I think
think that's the
Tiger
one.
Shark might say it too.
Yes, Tiger Shark. Yeah, this is not fabulous. But
No, but I do think it's worth tracking down, and especially if you are interested in these artists, it's definitely worth it alone for that. And if you got a chuckle out of just the cocaine panel and you want to see just how crazy the story gets, I feel like it's definitely worth your
I
time.
did not expect the cocaine to go in the direction it did.
No, I was like, okay, why is Wolverine kind of drowning in snot on the cover of issue number 22? And then when I got there, I was like, oh, okay, interesting.
Wolverine,
Yeah,
much like Mr. Scarface himself, is drowning in cocaine, and
yeah,
it
yeah.
sure is something. We've got a couple of Wolverine stories on our list of 123 different X-Men titles. ranging from Days of Future Past at number 1 to something else at one. The Draco. I can say the Draco at least. There's not a. I don't feel uncomfortable saying the Draco at least.
No,
it's just terrible.
I think we just get to identify how horrible it is every
It
episode.
is. I'm
That's fine.
more comfortable now than I was like 10 episodes ago. But around the 90s, we have a handful of Wolverine stories already. At 91, we've got the Phalanx Covenant Wolverine and Cable part story. Final Sanction. Do you think this is better or worse than Final Sanction?
I think this is better than that. I think this is like just from a sheer like window shopping curiosity kind of perspective. This is definitely worth checking out. It's very strange.
I can get with that. I can get with that. But I think where I might have problems with is Brood Trouble in the Big Easy, which is an oddly similar, hyper of its time, late 80s, early 90s story with great art, a kind of nonsense story. But I like having Ghost Rider turn into a Brood better than Wolverine, getting I don't do drugs. I don't know any good cocaine words, guys. I'm sorry. I'd love to do some very nice, powder puns. But powder's about as far as I got, and I use that for alliteration.
Well, I think that's a good ceiling. Do you think this is better than Glob Loves Man Kills, which we just ranked recently?
No, I don't.
No, okay.
I think Glob Loves Man Kills does what it does in 2 issues. It is a lot of fun, and I really do care about Glob Herman. But I could right below that we got that special edition X-Men backup. I think this is probably better than Kitty Pryde and Ilyana Rasputin taking a trip around the mansion.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to put it. This is definitely something that just for, sheer like rubbernecking, you're going to want to take a look at. It's like there's a car accident on the side of the road and you just have to see what's going on.
All right. There. So our new number 88 is Wolverine Cocaine. That's just what we're going to put. We're just going to call this Wolverine Cocaine every time we talk about it, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's the best way to describe it. Now it's shorthand. Now we know what it is.
Well, I'm glad that Thomas brought that into my life. The next story we have is another bout of this time, I believe, just a couple of years later in 1991, Wolverine story. This is not coming out of X-Men, though, or coming out of Wolverine. This is coming out of the other book that Wolverine was just always in the early 90s, besides all of them. This is coming out of Marvel Comics Presents. This is the lead story in issues 85 to 92. There's also a Beast story that runs kind of parallel to this. I think there's a bit of an overlap. I think Beast starts soon by Scott.
And a Firestar story.
Yeah, the Firestar story is not very good. The Beast story is actually what is it? Is it Scott Lobdell and Rob Liefeld who do that one?
I know that Rob does at least part of it. I don't think he does all of it, but it is Lobdell, and Jay Lee actually does a little bit of that too.
That's right. So, we're not talking about that though. We aren't. Nope. We're talking about Wolverine Blood Hungry. Which is written by Peter David with art by Sam Keith and Glynis Oliver colors. And boy howdy, let me tell you what. Sam Keith can draw a Wolverine.
Oh man, do you like Sam Keith?
I've never read the Max. I have never read the Max.
Oh, you are missing out. I mean, the Max is really great.
It's a comic book with not one but 2 X's in the title. So I feel like that should appeal to my baser instincts.
I mean, if you ever felt a hole in your heart and needed a purple spandex homeless person in your life with giant teeth, the Max is there for you whenever you need it. He's just... It's such a weird thing, and I'm so glad it exists. I think it's IDW has been doing reissues.
I think
with remastered pages.
I actually think that Sam Keith recently said he was coming back to it. I feel like I saw that.
Really?
Somewhere.
Oh, that would be fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a very cool, weird series, and it's interesting because there's a character in that called Julie. Who's one of the main characters. And in a flashback scene in this story, there's a character that looks almost identical to Julie. So there's a little bit of crossover here, but man, do I love some Sam Keith art.
Yeah, here's the thing, guys. The art in this story is very, very good. Can I tell you what I love about Sam Keith Wolverine? Because there's two things that stick out to me.
Go ahead.
One, he's pointy as all get out. His hair, his mask, his claws, they are over the top, long and pointy. And it adds, like, it's a comic book and it does the stuff that only a comic book can do because it's unrealistic and like disproportioned, but in a way that really gets to the core of the character. It's like cartooning. It really is like cartooning, but just with this darker, grittier style. And can I tell you the second thing I love about Sam Keith Wolverine?
Please do.
He's a big old hairy boy. He is just tip to toe covered in hair, and it's fabulous. He looks so great.
Yeah. The amount of time it must have to put in all of the little hashes for for his grizzled face and his arms. It's pretty fantastic. There's a layer of detail on each of these pages that I really, really like. And the panel layouts here are, similar to Max. They have this dreamlike quality to them. He does a really good job of playing around with space on the page with panels that, might take organic shapes, or there's a couple of occasions for him to play around with Peter David's little verbal jokes that are here, and he does some fun things with the panel layouts that are cool.
Yeah, he does a really good job playing off David, who's a creator that I have some very mixed personal and creative feelings about.
Fair enough.
But I think Sam Keith is a really good partner for him. What I don't think works as well is the major character that's introduced in this story. And that is Cyber.
You mean Cyber. Nothing to do with the internet.
No.
Just Cyber.
Cyber doesn't. Cyber's like. I feel like if you were trying to come up with a more 90s idea than, like, a more legitimately 90s, not an over the top, like, we're going to make pouches everywhere guy, but like just an antithesis of super 90s stuff, Cyber would be right there because he's a Wolverine bad guy, but Wolverine can't cut him because all of his skin is laced with adamantium and he has Wolverine's secret past. And
yeah, he's basically Wolverine, except he's got little claw things in his fingers.
He's got these dinky little claw, like they're just like needles.
But they are similar to our last story, coated in a sort of hallucinogenic drug that causes Wolverine to trip balls, people. And that is where this story really just gets absolutely bananas and just as bonkers as the last one we were just talking about. Because when you get down to it, this story does seem to really be, I don't know if we want to really kind of deconstruct it this far, but
this 27-year-old Wolverine story.
Yeah, it really does seem to be about like penis envy, as Wolverine is literally in his hallucination chasing around a giant Oscar Mayer wiener mobile that Cyber is driving. And then later, I think it's in the 8th part, the last part, he actually looks at Cyber and compares claws and says, "Mine's bigger."
This is true.
I mean, that's what we're dealing with this story. Not a lot of subtext.
Oh my gosh, Wolverine penis envy. I mean, yeah, you're not wrong is the problem here. That's
yeah. I mean, it's phrased that Cyber is the only thing that Wolverine's ever been afraid of, and the trippy hallucination seems to indicate that Cyber used to be his teacher in some respects, and that somebody that Wolverine loved died.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds like every other Wolverine flashback we've ever heard of.
Well, they hadn't done a ton of them yet, so now it was just a fresh thing. Wait.
Well,
had this come out before they did the Wolverine Silver Fox stuff? No, it would have been after. It would have been after Silver Fox died. So this would have only been the second time.
It's interesting though that I had forgotten this. This story comes immediately after Barry Windsor Smith's Weapon X.
Yeah, that's a dang good 1-2 punch of
That's a
Wolverine stories.
wild turn though, right? Like, can you imagine going from one issue, you wrap up Weapon X, and this is the next story? It's really crazy.
Yes, I can, because I read all of MCP in like a weird, only the X relevant parts. I didn't read a lot of Ghost Rider, guys. I'm sorry. You don't care about him. But I
At
read
one point, we'll have to cover Ghost Rider and Cable. That's a
that story's
true massive
bad.
classic.
That story is not good.
It is not
I'll
good.
tell you, obviously, best MCP story, Weapon X. Second best is
Mhm.
Blood Hungry. Third is probably we're not going to get into third yet, because I'd have to think about it. The other Sam Keith one, where it's Wolverine and Venom, is also up there.
Oh, that's a fun one. So this is a visual treat. It is a very slight story, but gosh darn it, if it's not fun to just stare at all these pages. Like, I absolutely love
Yeah,
this.
layouts are good. You get some legitimately good Peter David dialogue. Like, I think the standout characters for him is Tiger, in her interactions with both Wolverine and General Mon.
Koi.
Yeah, or General Koi. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because Cyber kills all of their henchmen towards the end of this, I think in the seventh
Mhm.
part. So the two of them just spend the rest of the story negotiating how they're going to explain it to the rest of
Oh,
Madripoor.
it's
And I
great.
think they decide on aliens, and that's just, I don't know. It's got a real fun Peter David, X Factor era humor that works really well.
Yeah, it dialogue is solid in this book. Uh,
Mhm.
the art is fantastic. I really enjoyed this story. Like, I don't think it's been printed since 1993, but maybe go check it out. Plus the covers.
Yeah,
Like,
I
go
mean, you
check out
should.
these friggin' fantastic Sam Keith covers.
Yeah, you should be able to find these in like a dollar bin somewhere. A lot of people were buying MCP at the time, and I think there was also a reprint of it. Right? There's a collected edition of it that's floating around somewhere that you
Somewhere.
might be able to find.
Yeah, somewhere.
Yeah, strangely enough, it's not on Unlimited. I don't know
Unlimited
why. That
Unlimited
they're
is super bad with MCP, because it'll only
Yeah,
do parts of it. Like there's a big the Black Panther, that, what is it, 24-part story that
yeah,
McGregor did. That is only that is on Unlimited, but none of the other stuff, like the Colossus God Country or the Cyclops story, is on there. Which is a little
yeah. It's
disappointing, because
strange.
there's some fun stuff in MCP.
Hmm.
Not a ton of great stuff,
Well,
but there's a lot of fun stuff.
hopefully they'll get on that. All right, let's get into ranking this. Where would you go?
I think this is better than the first arc of Ultimate X-Men at number 44.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
We're going
where
pretty
were
high.
where were you gonna like where were you gonna start at? I want to know this.
Well, our previous acts of well, oh wait, hold on a sec. Now I'm looking at the wrong thing here. I'm sorry. Um, I mean, I do really love the art here. I think this is fun. Um, I don't know if this is better than Ladies' Night though. Do you? Uncanny X-Men
I
244?
think it's comparable to Ladies' Night.
Okay.
They are
All
they
right.
are they
I
are
don't know if
different stories. Uh,
yeah.
but I think, like, the Sam Keith art really carries this. I think this is better than that last part of the Zdarsky Howard the Duck. I think that's
Okay.
probably
Yeah,
better.
I can get on board for
But yeah,
that.
I think we can slide it
Yeah.
between that and Ladies' Night.
Okay, I'm good with that because we have the first Peter David arc of X Factor at 50, and I'm just looking at what's around that, and I think that's a good spot. So this will be our new
Our new number
46.
46 is Blood Hungry. And
Nice.
we've got one more story.
All right.
Now, this one, Adam, you picked this one out. So I'm kind of interested.
This
I'd
one,
never read this. I really hadn't.
Well, we were looking for another Majapur, story, another Tiger story, something that, kind of tied in with these two. And Savage Wolverine 12 and 13, written and with art by Phil Jimenez and co-written by Scott Lope. I don't know if it's Lope or Lope. There seems to be an army of inkers on the second issue and colors by Rochelle
Yeah.
Rosenberg. Um, this is another kind of bananas story. It's not nearly as psycho as the first two we're
No.
covering, but it's still weird because it involves Logan talking to elephants, almost psychically. So I guess points for that. But really, the premise of this story is that Logan is tracking poachers and tracks them back to Madripoor and eventually tracks them back to Tiger. And that's where our
Yeah,
conflict is for these
it's
two
interesting.
issues.
So it does a good job of showing the parts of Logan that are how do I say, the more sensitive side of him. He cares about animals. He cares about nature. He doesn't like, even though he's a killer, he doesn't like senseless killing. He feels like
Mm-hmm.
he is a samurai. He has to have a reason, a code, and all this stuff. So it's interesting. And Savage Wolverine as a series was a pretty interesting experiment because it was artist driven. It was, they had artists do
Yeah.
the whole thing.
But I mean, the whole thing started off with giving Frank Cho the reins, and letting him tell a Savage Land story. And then I'm not sure if it was initially just going to be his book or if they decided after
Wait,
that it should turn into an
yeah, the way I
anthology. It
understand it,
doesn't
it was
last for
going to be an anthology, getting new artists in there and giving them a real chance to shine because you get the Frank Cho stuff, and then you get
Mhm.
Joe Mad does some stuff with Zeb Wells as writer, who
Yep.
they had been working together on what was it, the Amazing Wolverine and Spider-Man, or the Spider-Man Wolverine team up book, whatever that was. Jock gets a couple of issues where he does his own thing,
Mhm.
and I haven't read those, but those covers look gorgeous, so I kind of want to now. Phil Jimenez, yeah, it's a bunch
Yeah,
of
we'll
a
get to that
bunch of
eventually.
artists getting a chance to really stretch their limbs and do something, which is, it's an interesting experiment. I've only read the Frank Child stuff, so I don't know how fantastic it was overall. But this story isn't bad. It does some cool stuff with Logan. I can tell you that it does at times feel like Phil Jimenez is still cutting his teeth as a writer because the dialogue in this can come off as a little
Hmm.
overwrought and
It-
dramatic.
well, especially for a Wolverine story, its central story of Wolverine hunting down uh, these this poaching industry and having this core emotional connection with these elephants. It's a little heavy handed, shall we say?
Yeah, doesn't he visit one of the elephants every year on that elephant's birthday or something?
He does. There's an ongoing long-term relationship between Logan and this elephant, which, it is interesting. Like all three of these stories have some sequence of Wolverine and animals. In the Archie Goodwin one that we started with, he just straight up like murders a warthog. So not really sure what that's all about. When we get to Blood Hungry, he, I guess, is hunting by trying to touch a wolf without the wolf noticing him. And then that wolf later comes and saves the day, as
which
part
is
of Blood Hungry.
which is a character trait that I believe came out of classic X-Men. So
Yes. That seems
that's
a little
a
bit more true, right?
yes.
And now this one has this element again of Wolverine, interacting with wildlife in this very core way to his character. Um, but ultimately, it's sort of a, I don't know, the story only has two issues, so there's not a lot to explore. He follows this poaching chain back to Madripoor. He burns it down. There's a little bit of a, sort of an emotional choice there because I guess some of this poaching money is going back to help the people of Madripoor.
Well, it's a
Um,
weird choice. It's a weird choice here. And can I interject if you would
yeah,
not mind?
please.
The weird choice here is that Tiger says, well, this poaching, it helps out the poor in Madripoor and all this stuff. But that seems like a weird way to do it. Like, you're saying that, well, look at all this commerce that this brings in. Yeah, Tiger, you're still like super murdering a lot of endangered animals, and it can't be bringing in that much commerce. And also maybe like chill with that. Like, this is not a big social choice. Like, this doesn't seem like a big moral dilemma. This is a bad late 2000s like morality system video game choice where here's this obvious right answer, here's this thing you can do if you're being the bad version of the character. What do you choose?
I mean, the idea that they're paying for like Madripoor Medicare through like tusks and tiger heads, it's a little bit incredulous, when you're talking about endangered species, call me
By
wrong here,
definition.
right? Like, my poaching knowledge is limited, but I would assume a warehouse could not be filled with all of this material. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. That would be extremely sad and gross, but it does seem a little odd.
There is a really gross sequence where he like cuts off a rhino's head, and I am not there for that. That was not comfortable.
Well, part of Savage Wolverine was also that the artists had a little bit more leeway as to, what they could do, what they could show, violence wise. So anyway, story wraps up. Wolverine gets to check in with her elephant. There's a cool little side scene with Kitty Pryde teaching at the school about costumes, which is kind of fun.
It's perfect. It's perfect because in Quentin Quire, being the little snot-nosed brat that he is, does immediately comment like, why in the world are we listening to her on costumes? Because her default costume choice is, well, I'm really bad at coming up with something else. I'm going to go with what's on the shelf for everyone.
Yeah, I don't know. I like that scene. Everybody gets a little cameo there. It's the Wolverine and the X-Men group. So I don't know. I thought that was a fun little cameo there.
Yeah, I don't think this is bad. I don't think this is memorable at all.
No. It ties into the other two stories that we're talking about, but it wraps up so quickly that there's not a lot to digest here. Like you said, the moral choice is pretty clear, and that's exactly what happens, and we move on.
So, speaking of moving on, where would you like to put this on our list?
Well, I'm looking down around the Life Death 3.
Life Death 3?
That's at 99 right now.
99. Oddly
That's one
comparable.
place I'm looking. Yeah, the other one I'm looking at is Wolverine Volume 3, or Wolverine Volume 3, number 6. Where
the one with Nightcrawler on the naked cover, yes.
Yeah, like these are some comparable stories where it's, there's nothing wrong with the art. The writing is competent. The stories are trying hard, but they're not particularly memorable.
So I was looking just a tiny bit lower at 101 at the
Children of the Atom.
Yeah, the Children of the Atom story that has some art that's good. Like, it's got Chris Bachalo art, but it's kind of a nothing story.
Yeah, it's a bit of a dud.
Yeah, it's not what you want.
Would you say this is better than Extreme X-Men Expose?
This is probably better than Expose.
Okay. Well, then that's probably a good place to put it.
Okay. Yeah, we can slot this in as our new 102. Savage Wolverine 12 and 13, titled Come Conquer the Beasts.
Oh man. Yeah, and I wish we had more to say about that, but compared to the other two stories, it just is not as like out of control bonkers. So if I was going to recommend you track anything down, track down the first two. This third one, you could probably skip it.
I mean, it doesn't have Wolverine fighting a mountain of cocaine, nor does it have Wolverine chasing an Oscar Mayer Wienermobile.
It's hard to compete with those two things, right?
I'm not joking about either of those things, people. That happens.
Yep.
That's not...
Those are real things in print.
Oh my gosh. So, yeah. Also, I'm pretty sure most of those moments have appeared on the No Context X-Men Twitter feed. So hopefully Thomas appreciates that. And speaking of that, I think we're wrapping up this episode now. I think we're in the postscript.
Yeah, that was 3.
That was 3. Man, just like the number of claws on one hand for Wolverine. We got snick, snick, snicked. We got them all 3 there. So Battle of the Atom is a weekly podcast, as you know, because you are listening to it this week. It is supported, just like everything else in the Xavier Files media empire, on patreon.com. If you go to patreon.com/Xavier Files, you can join in to some of the fun and get an entire episode built around a suggestion of your choice. We have, I think, like a couple of months worth of suggestions, but we're getting to the getting into the clear. So if you've got something that you've been dying for us to talk about, $2 gets you there. $2 gets that whole episode for you. So that's like half the price of a comic. If we're doing the math here, is an entire 45-ish minutes of us talking about X-Men worth more to you than 10 pages of Weapon X? That's mean. I don't read Weapon X. I don't know. It may be very good. I hear that Omega Red has a tiger friend now. That sounds promising.
Ooh, I like that idea. There we go.
But yeah, if you want to support, go over to patreon.com/Xavier Files and pitch in, or don't. Maybe leave a review if you want to, though, because those are cool and those help us get ranked higher in different algorithms, just like the Spotify algorithm, because we're now on that. If you want to listen to us on Spotify, I thought that was going to be hard. I flipped a switch and it was very easy. So
yeah, all of the episodes are up there now, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, we got the whole podcast there, and each one will be found there. Speaking of other places you can find these episodes, you can find them on Xavier Files, which is the website that I run, where we talk about different X-Men things throughout the week, including news and updates and fun stuff. Like character entries about Anale, whose name I just recently learned how to pronounce, and who has a terrifying meta backstory about what was going to happen to him. You can read all about that in the article that I hopefully posted on Thursday.
Oh, I got to check that out.
Dude, we'll talk. It's crazy. Beyond that, you can go to twitter.com/Xavier Files. Most people just say @Xavier Files on Twitter, but I like to go with the way of less brevity. Adam, please stop me from talking and plug your everything.
All right, guys. You can always follow me on Twitter @Arthur Stacy. And if you still need a copy of The Search for Bish and Jubes, you can go to adamrec.bigcartel.com. $1 gets printed and shipped to your house. So, hop over, grab a copy. I'll mail it to you and you'll be happy. And I just started working on the 4th one. So new pages will be coming at some point. I don't know when, but I'm hoping maybe for late summer. I don't know. We'll see how that goes.
It's going to be great. Next time on the podcast, we jump in to celebrate the work of the battle between, and I'm just avoiding talking about this, the Inhumans versus the X-Men. I got some feelings, let me tell you what. You're going to need to turn your volume down because that's going to be a shouty episode.
Oh, yeah.
But until then, this has been Battle of the Atom. We hope you survived the experience.
Get it!